Hey, so have you ever been playing Undertale and it was like, okay, but what if this but D&D? No? Well, too bad, 'cause we're doing it anyway. You can't stop this. It's already begun! I've been a fan of D&D for a while. I've been both a player and a game master in various campaigns. I've played as a grumpy artificer bunny girl, a kleptomaniac cat rogue, and many, many more. I'm also a big fan of indie games. And in this video, we're going to be combining those two things together. Today, we're going to be redesigning 3 indie game protagonists into D&D characters. The specific characters we're going to be redesigning are Risk from Undertale, Nico from One Shot, and Nova from Anodyne 2. But before we get into the video at hand, let's discuss some ground rules. I'm only going to be using official character options posted by WotC to make these characters, so no homebrew. I'll also be tweaking the characters' backstories to better fit the D&D norm, and so it would make more sense for a classic D&D campaign. Alright, with all the preamble out of the way, let's get started with the most determined lad out of the bunch, Frisk. So for Frisk, my first immediate thought was to make them a paladin. Depending on how you play Undertale, you could have multiple different classes that could fit Frisk, but I made this design with the pacifist run in mind. So Paladin was a pretty good fit in my mind. I also gave Frisk some pretty healthy plate armor with a design meant to invoke the save point in the game. I also gave him a sword and shield because you gotta have a sword and shield when you're playing the Paladin, it's just the law. I decided to make Frisk a halfling instead of a human because the idea of a literal 10-year-old child going on D&D style adventures was weird to me. So I made them the halfling to keep their small size while also not having a small child fight zombies and demons and stuff. Since I thought it would look weird if I gave their armor the blue and magenta color scheme of their OG shirt, I gave them a scarf with those colors instead. For their backstory, I made it so Frisk was a member of a monster hunting village, and one day he decided to climb the mountain that was rumored to hold the most vicious monsters known to man, now trapped by their village decades ago. But once they climbed the mountain and fell flat on their face, they found the monsters weren't actually dangerous and were in actuality good-hearted people who were trapped in the mountain years ago by paranoid humanoids. Seeing this, Frisk takes an oath of devotion and sets out on a quest to free the monsters. For their stats, they would have probably high charisma and strength, given Frisk's general ability to make friends with anyone, and well, you kinda need good strength if you're gonna play a paladin. For the dump stat, I was speaking intelligence. Frisk ain't the most book-read person in this world in this interpretation. So that's Frisk. Oh, and if you were no Musky Frisk, they would be an Oathbreaker Paladin. On to everyone's favorite, totally not cat, Nico. Nico is a bit of a difficult one to pick a class for me. Nico is the messiah of the world they find themselves in, so the obvious first choice for them would be a cleric. But the idea of Nico walking around in armor didn't really sit well with me, so I thought, until I realized something perfect. A divine soul sorcerer. Think about it, it's the perfect fit for a messiah. For their backstory, I imagine Nico was raised in a tabaxi village as a normal kid until one day they wake up far away from their village with no idea where they are or how they got there. Now they must find a way back to their village with only mysterious voices to guide them. This is meant to sort of like invoke the feeling of Nico waking up in another world in the original game. And the mysterious voice is obviously meant to echo the player or taking the role of God in the game. I imagine Nico would be a DPS/healer role, keeping their allies alive while also nuking enemies with a well-placed guiding bolt. Their highest stat would be Charisma, because they are a lovable little guy, with high dex as well. For their dump stat, I went with Wisdom. I imagine due to being raised in a tabaxi village for their entire lives, resulting in not knowing how the outside world works out. Now that Nico is out of the way, let's move on to Nova. I just realized that 2 of the characters I picked have names that start with N. Nova is the protagonist of Anodyne 2, Return to Dust, one of my favorite games of all time. Nova was created by this thing called Dissenter, and without spoiling anything, the whole thing kind of reeks of a cult. So that's what I made it. Nova is the creation of Dissenter, an eldritch being and serves as their most trusted servant in their cult, who eventually sends her traveling around the world, cleaning up all the impurities in the material plane. Since Nova is the creation of Dissenter, I decided to make her an Aasimar. And since she gets her power from her connection to the center, I decided to make her a warlock, specifically a Hexblade warlock, because while the Great Old One patron would fit more, that subclass sucked major dookie. I wanted her to be actually effective. I was feeling a little Kratos-y, so I decided to give her the chain blades that he has, which I guess could be a reflavor of the longsword of greatswords. I don't know, use your imagination. I also did this to invoke her vacuum cannon being she has in game, and you could reflavor the Grass of Hadar Eldritch Invocation to be her pulling your enemies in with her blades all Scorpion style. You know, if your DM is cool. And with that, I believe session 0 is over and our characters are ready for adventure. What did you think of my D&D versions of these characters? Would you have built them differently? Let me know in the comments below. Oh, be sure to stay tuned for future videos. I have a bunch of stuff planned, like story times and commentaries and all that. Not really sure when that one's going to come out. I'm sort of like winging this, just like this outro. Anyway, with that, I bid you all adieu. See ya!